मैम लाइव कर रहे हैं
हाँ
कि लाइव ही हो रहा है और ब्रॉडकास्ट करेंगे तुरंत
ओके
ही।
ओके सो
मैम वेबिनार इज स्टार्टेड नाउ।
So I welcome Subbarao sir for giving the first webinar of the Gujkos webinar series, and my colleague Professor Balomi Sen Gupta will be starting with the webinar series schedule.
Good morning all. I, Dr. Balomi Sen Gupta, on behalf of Industrial University, warmly welcome you all to the Gujkos sponsored webinar series, Opportunities in Chemistry and Biological Sciences.
अगर प्रॉब्लम होगा तो बुलाऊंगा, प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं दिख रहा है।
This is a collection of 6 webinars which will focus mainly on transforming our scientific ideas into startup organizations. Basically, these are the small steps which can lead to a self-reliant India. Here in Industrial University, we are very blessed to have Professor J.S. Yadav as our Provost and Research Director. Professor Yadav has been honored with several accolades and awards. He is an FNA, Fellow of National Academy of Sciences, FTWAS, Fellow of the World Academy of Sciences, J.C. Ghosh Fellow, CSIR Bhatnagar Fellow, and all. Professor J.S. Yadav was formerly the director of CSIR IICT. While working at the CSIR IICT, he has excelled in the academics, and his outstanding findings have been published in very reputed international journals. To the best of information, he is the only scientist in the entire CSIR and in all disciplines so far who could publish over 1,300 reputed research papers, to 27,000 citations, and 150 plus national and international patents during his career. In fact, this academic zeal attended numerous young and enthusiastic budding researchers to get themselves associated with Dr. Yadav for their PhD degrees, which has brought him an identification and recognition as the human resources person in the field of organic chemistry. Consequently, he has also been identified as the best productive chemist of India by an independent Scopus survey. Now, I invite Professor J.S. Yadav to formally inaugurate this webinar series and deliver his remarks and guide us further. Professor Yadav, please.
Dr. Balomi, thank you very much. Today, Namrata is not there or what? Namrata Bajaj.
Yes, sir. This webinar series for today we will be conducting. Namrata ma'am said that she has taken many responsibilities and she will be online. She will be guiding us all through.
Okay. Normally she starts, so that's what I was wondering. What? I hope she is well.
Yes, sir. She is fine. She is in campus only.
Okay, good. Dr. Subbarao, my colleague and also the participant for this webinar. You know, Dr. Subbarao, we have started a webinar series, and this is especially sponsored by Gujkos, Gujarat State Science and Technology, Department of Science and Technology. So, and we normally we held several talks. We have held almost every 2 talks every month, and many people have spoken. Distinguished people have, we don't call it distinguished lecture, but most of the people are distinguished people who have given this. And Dr. Subbarao is definitely one of them, and he is actually organic chemist. You may not be knowing, and did PhD with Dr. Sukhdev, which is not written here. So he is my junior fellow, junior colleague. And we both did from the same Baroda University, alumni of Baroda University at Multi-Chem Research Center. And only 2 people I know who excel very well. Father-in-law, then got son-in-law. One is Yamamoto. He married his boss daughter. And Subbarao is not behind. He also married his boss daughter. So he's not only student of Dr. Sukhdev, he's also son-in-law of Dr. Sukhdev. And he has done excellent work, and he, CB what he has sent is a very mild way, not, I would say that he is very decent not to send all those things, but he has, helped CSIR in many ways as a council member, RSC, Research Advisory Council, RC Council, Research Council, member of many prestigious institutes that includes like a National Chemical Laboratory, CDRI Lucknow, many more. I don't want to go on this, many more. And he was in International Center for Biotechnology and Genetics and Biotechnology in Delhi as an international professor, and he was at a quite high position. Then DBT started a new institute, and he was heading that. And after that, he left and started his own business and his own startup. Of course, you have already read, he's also got Bhatnagar Award, many more. But what is not written, I don't find many people from India who has published paper in Cell. And he has a good number of paper published in Cell, being organic chemistry, leading biologist research, translational research. So only thing I can tell you that after we have, Kannuri, we have, Atal Innovation Center, like a start we can support. So I felt that you are more appropriate to deliver this lecture. And also lot of people who wish to do startup are also attending. Not only our student, all over Gujarat people are attending. We had, this kind of things. So I don't want to take your much time. And only I can say, Palomi and all of my colleagues, that we are lucky that he has accepted talk. He's a very busy man. He doesn't, go more outside of this one. He's involved more on his research and understanding. But with my request, he readily agreed. And being his elder brother, I don't think he can say no also. So that's how we teach. So now it is, now even he has to deliver lecture, or somebody else had to speak in between. Follow me.
Yes, sir, there is, thank you for your remarks. I invite Dr. Bharti Dave, Dean, School of Science.
Dr. Sub, normally Bharti will explain about whatever in Rasil University, our founder and all those things.
Yes,
just
sir.
5 to 10 minutes, and then after that you will start your lecture. Okay, Dr. Bharti.
Ma'am, please.
Anuj. Okay. Full screen kar diya. So on behalf of Indrashil University, I welcome you all to this webinar. So just to give you a very brief profile as to the genesis of our university and what we are doing at our university. As you can see, our role model of our university or our source of inspiration for the entire Cadila Pharmaceutical employees as well as university employees and the students is Shri Indravardhan Bhai A. Modi, who was the founder chairman of Cadila Pharmaceuticals Limited, which was established in 1951. A very noble person, a very humble and modest person, a nationalist at heart, and who truly believed that medicine should be affordable and should reach to the last person of the society. And it is this care that is still being continued at Cadila Pharmaceuticals Limited. So our university was established as a philanthropic initiative of our founding chancellor, Dr. Rajiv I. Modi, in loving memory of his parents, Shri Indravardhan Ambalal Modi and Srimati Sheelaben Modi, from whose name the name of our university has been derived, and who had laid the foundation stone of Cadila Pharmaceuticals in 1951. He is a role model to many in our country. Initially, if I really tell you about his life history, his success story, initially when he started Cadila Pharmaceuticals in 1951, it was established in just one small room in an apartment in Hasot village in Bharuch district. And every day he used to move around about 30 to 40 kilometers a day on his bicycle, marketing and selling his product. His wife, Srimati Sheelaben Modi, was the first employee of Cadila Pharmaceuticals Limited. And she was truly the source of inspiration. She was the believer that it should be the first indigenously manufactured gripe water that should be manufactured by Cadila Pharmaceuticals Limited, and which has brought smiles to the millions of kids of our country. And that is why, to honor the legacy of care and compassion, our governing body as well as Dr. Rajiv Modi are determined to develop this university into a hallmark of global academic excellence, both in terms of teaching as well as in terms of research. Next slide, please. So if we see to the milestones of the success of our university, as I said, Cadila Pharmaceuticals was established in 1951 from scratches, and now it is one of the largest privately held pharmaceutical companies in India. And they took up an education initiative in 2016 by establishing Shri Saraswati Education Foundation. But seeing to the life sciences requirements of our country, seeing to the R&D which is being carried out by most of the pharmaceutical companies, in 2018 they established Indrashil University as the first life sciences university of our country. And seeing to the success of our university, in 2019, Niti Aayog, Government of India, has supported us with Atal Incubation Center, with its flagship program that is to encourage youth of this country for developing startups and becoming future entrepreneurs of our country. And in 2019-20, solely by the government of Gujarat, it was Indrashil Innovative Foundation which was set up with its program Student Startup and Innovation Policy. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. As has already been said, as I always say, the success of any institute depends on its leader. We have Dr. J.S. Yadav as our mentor. Dr. Paulomi has already given the credentials of Dr. J.S. Yadav. I do not need to repeat them. But one of the best known organic chemists nationally as well as internationally, with a number of patents, about 150 plus publications, 250 PhD students, and still we have 11 students actively working under him, a number of 27,000 citations. Next slide, please. So what we offer at Indrashil University is academic excellence. We do not compromise on academics, and this academic excellence is provided by extremely highly qualified faculty that we have. All of them are postdocs with global exposure. We want the students to be industry ready, and that is why we provide them enough industrial exposure, both in terms of industrial visits as well as industrial internships during their summer holidays. And we focus on 360 overall development of the students. And as has already been said, we have tried to achieve global academic standards. Next slide. So at Indrashil University, we have School of Science as well as School of Engineering. School of Engineering offers BTech in Computer Engineering, Mechanical Engineering, Chemical and Biochemical Engineering, whereas School of Science offers BSc Honours in Chemistry and BSc Honours in Biosciences, the first university in Gujarat to offer honours degree at an undergraduate level. MSc in Chemistry, MSc in Animal Biology, MSc in Microbiology, as well as PhD in both the programs. And regarding international collaborations, we have entered into linkages or collaboration with Sacred Heart University USA, Tuskegee University USA, as well as Newcastle University Australia, where our students in their final year would be going there and would be obtaining a dual degree both from Indrashil University as well as these foreign universities. Next slide, please. So we have highly sophisticated laboratories that we have. As Subba Rao sir also must be knowing, we have mentor as Dr. J.S. Yadav. We do not compromise on laboratory facilities, but we have highly sophisticated instruments, not to name them, a number of GCMS, a number of HPLC, FTIR. But what we have recently procured is NMR, which costs about 4 to 4.5 crores. And at this, our university is the first in Gujarat to have an NMR, which is available both to postgraduate students as well as to research students. As is very well known, NMR is used to determine the quality and the content and purity of the sample, to determine the structure of organic molecules, etc. Next slide, please. This facility is also being made available to rest of the students in universities as well as research institutes. So as has been said, we provide platforms for developing the entrepreneurship skill of the students. We have Atal Incubation Center as well as we have Indrashil Innovative Foundation. Atal Incubation Center supported by Niti Aayog, Government of India, and Indrashil Innovation Foundation being supported by Government of Gujarat. Next slide, please. And so in both these platforms, we provide access to the young researchers in the form of we give them access to world-class research and development laboratories that we have. We provide 50 lakh kickstart support to the entrepreneurs. We provide 2 crores as seed fund support, and we provide the overall support to the students as well as entrepreneurs if they want to take up their startup to a sustainable business. And I think today's webinar has been very well, it is very appropriate as per the 2 incubation platforms that are made available by this university. Next slide, please. So if you want any more information on our university, you can visit our website. You can contact the person concerned at the email given and the contact number that is given. Thank you very much, Dr. Palomi. And now we are eagerly awaiting for Dr. Subba Rao to deliver his address. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind remarks. I invite my colleague, Dr. Nidhi Gaur, to briefly explain the objectives of this webinar series. And right after that, we will start with Dr. Subba Rao's lecture.
Thank you, Dr. Palomi. So the Gujcos webinar series, Opportunities in Chemistry and Biological Sciences for Indigenization in India, is very important and relevant in today's context, wherein our Honorary Prime Minister has appealed to all of us to create an Atmanirbhar Bharat. There is increasing need to become self-reliant in all the sectors, and scientists must realize their responsibility towards society and strive to convert their research ideas to applications which can generate more and more employment. Hence, learning objectives of this webinar series are students and young scientists should learn and know more about opportunities in chemical and biological sciences and its future scope. The webinar by eminent scientists will be very helpful in guiding us, and they can guide us how to set up collaborations with industries and other academic institutions and have an interdisciplinary approach. It will also help in learning the importance of creative work environment wherein innovative ideas are always welcome. One of the most important aims of the webinar series is students and scientists should learn how to convert their ideas to proof of concept and finally use it for commercialization in the form of innovative products that can be launched in the market. So most importantly, it is expected that this webinar series will instigate interest in setting up the startups and motivate the audience to make their research, to take their research a step forward towards building up new innovative technologies and to be a job giver rather than job seeker in future. In this context, this webinar series will host 6 webinars by most eminent scientists of India who have accomplished themselves as entrepreneurs, and they will guide us about the startup opportunities in India and inspire us. So we are very fortunate that we have the first webinar by Professor Subba Rao, who is the life example of how an academician can turn into entrepreneur and provide employments to all. So I thank Dr. Palomi and request her to carry forward the schedule.
Thank you, Dr. Nidhi, for your kind words. Although Dr. Yadav has introduced informally Dr. Subba Rao, but I have briefly prepared his introduction. I will read through it very briefly. Professor Subba Rao is a famous Indian immunologist. He was the head of the Drug Discovery Research Center at the Translational Health Science and Technology Institute, Faridabad. His research focuses on peptide synthesis, signaling pathways, and the design of a synthetic peptide vaccine. He is a member of all 3 academies of sciences like IAS, NASI, and INSA, and also a Bhatnagar Award winner of 1997 for his contribution to biological sciences. He is the co-founder and chief technical officer of Tridomix Technology Private Limited, an innovation-driven company that aims to pioneer in the field of health tech. Now I invite Professor Subba Rao for his lecture. Sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Polomi. So, well, I should start by thanking first Professor Yadav. And like he said, when Big Brother asks, you don't want to say no. So, but it's really a pleasure to be a part of this webinar. Thanks also to Dr. Dave, Dr. Gaur, and of course, Dr. Polomi for this very kind invitation. And of course, welcome to all the students who are watching this. So if I can start with the first slide. Okay, so basically, as was said, I was an academician for donkey's years, and then at the end, instead of retiring, I thought, let's give a hand at startups. So I'm really not an expert on startups, but what I thought I would share today is give you a sense of what I've learned in the last couple of years, and what are the interesting, what is interesting about it, what is frustrating about it, and what about startups gives you blood pressure and so on, right? So, and in India is in many ways unique for a startup environment, unique being both good and bad. And I thought I'd just, touch upon some of these aspects, right? So if I can have the next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. So to start with, what exactly is a startup? And fundamentally, it's a young company founded by one or more entrepreneurs. And remember, entrepreneurs need not be young. The company is young. And I think the key is to develop a unique product or service to bring it to the market. And I think that is the fundamental of a good startup, is a unique product or service, right? Because what is critical for many reasons as we go along the rest of the talk, your product, whatever, let's say you're a tech startup, you're starting, you're developing a new product. That has to be at least 10 times better than what currently exists in the market, because you're starting with a disadvantage, and we'll discuss some of those. So you really don't want to get into a startup unless you think you have really something outstanding, which is much, much better. That's what it's called, let's say 10x better, 10 times better. And particularly in terms of the technology or innovation that you're bringing to it, right? Because that's the only way you can build a sustainable company and stay ahead of the competition. Because for a startup, staying ahead of your competition, at least until you've really established yourself, is key to survival. So if you're thinking of a startup, that's the first question you need to ask yourself. Do you have a 10x product or / service? And I'll focus on the product because largely I'm addressing tech-based startup issues. Of course, the second thing is, do you have an idea for a 10x product that you can develop in your company and market it? And of course, this is a slightly more risky proposition because, will it work? Will it not work? How much will it cost? These are obviously very critical questions that come up, right? So that's the first fundamental requirement. You need to have a great idea if you want a chance of success, and your product should be far superior in many ways than what people are using, right? And this could be anything from diagnostic to whatever technology. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah. And this is critical because, any startup, what is key for a startup? I mean, a key feature of a startup is that they are shoestring operations. You're starting, a company with barely any money, and the first thing obviously you need to know is, where am I going to get the money to at least initiate my startup from? And it's most often it's too early to get any investors, and either you have the money in terms of savings or whatever, or you have friends or family who are willing to trust you with their money and will invest in your company. Because you can't go to any formal investors at this stage because you're too early in the game. Nobody, unless you're really, really lucky, nobody's going to come. But a more practical alternative, since is maybe if you can excite somebody else who has money to be a partner with you in your company, right? And the deal would be that you're providing the know-how and all the product development expertise. The partner, so that's your sweat equity in the company, and your partner, of course, will bring in at least the necessary money or resources, financial resources, to focus on developing and subsequently marketing the product. Yeah. Can I have the next slide, please? So obviously, before you may think of a startup, but before you actually go ahead and establish it, there's some fundamental question. And this is something people like me have learned the hard way, because you can go in without thinking and then you're doing thinking later on. And that's not a very smooth exercise as you go along. So it's good to have a few things, really clear in your mind uh, before you actually go and found the startup. And the first thing is, again, is what we can call the 10x problem. Do you have a product or a product idea that is at least 10 times better than the competition, right? And this is actually, again, a very, very critical question, because your startup is hanging in balance until you actually have a product in the marketplace and you're getting revenue that stabilizes, right? And that window is very critical for startup survival. And most startups actually fail at that stage, right? And so this is an important question, because you're now a new baby in a highly competitive market. And the only way you can actually impact, because you're trying to get consumers to test your product, your customers to test your product, the way you can get them to at least look at your product is if it is far superior to what they're currently using, right? And again, that entry into the market becomes easier if your product is technologically superior, because you don't have in the beginning much of a sales team or a sales strategy or anything, right? So getting it acceptable into the market again requires technological superiority and significant technological superiority. Yeah? And of course, people have put in money, whether it's your partner who has put in money or your family or whoever, and they've taken a risk, right? Funding any startup is a huge risk. So they want to be assured that their money is relatively safe. So again, something superior, which you can actually generate IP and so on, will also put them slightly at ease, at least in the early stages of your startup. Because that boosts their confidence in what you're doing. And that is critical. And again, we'll see that, right? Can you have next slide, please? Yeah. And again, just to re-emphasize this point, this 10x improvement of your product should be vertical, not horizontal. Because that is what is going to define whether you're going to have a successful company or not. And remember, when you talk about success, we're talking about, obviously, if you found a startup, you're thinking of long-term success. You're talking about 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever, right? So that, keeping that perspective, this 10x vertical advancement is very, very critical, because that will keep an edge on for your product for a longer time. So and you can actually protect it with through intellectual property protection, and that actually adds it will add credibility to a company, but also convince customers. If you say, look, I have patents built around this, they have more confidence in testing your product, whatever that is, right? So that brings not having a strong patent portfolio around your product will bring value and increase acceptability to new customers, because you're approaching customers who have never heard of you before, right? In terms of putting your product out into the market, right? So I think this is another important point to remember, particularly since we're talking about companies where you're looking over the next several years, you want it to succeed. So to say that I have a cheaper product, or it's easier to use, etc., these are not sustainable advantages, right? Because you can make a cheaper product, but your competition will quickly catch up, and also, so you don't survive on that strategy for very long. It needs to be cheaper, but the key is that it has to be technologically superior and protected by strong intellectual property portfolio. That is actually going to be the core fulcrum of your company. And of course, this is sometimes challenging, particularly for us in the life for chemical sciences and so on. This is actually where the software walas have a bigger advantage. Is the question of economies of scale. So, what does economies of scale mean? Is that if my product succeeds in the market, I have to start making multiple units, right? I may have to make thousands or millions of units of that particular product. So the cost of making those should not be that high that it crimps my profit margins. I think that's an important point one has to think. So it's not only technology, but cost of producing the technology should not be very, very high, so that you never get an advantage, even though you're expanding your market and scale. And this is a unique advantage all software products enjoy. So once you have developed a software, distributing among a million or a 10 million customers, it's barely going to cost anything much, right? Because these are all just software, and you can just distribute it. So it may cost me 100 rupees to make 1,000 copies of the software. To make it a million, maybe just cost me 200 rupees. So my increasing cost while increasing the production of those units is marginal, and therefore my profit margins become huge. And these are important because these are what will define whether your company, your startup company, how quickly it stabilizes, how quickly it starts growing. So these are critical situations. Can I have the next slide, please? Next slide, please. Yeah, so the second question, one of course is how good is the product, how novel or innovative is my product. The second key question is how strong is your foundational team, right? Because you're going to set up with a few other individuals normally as partners. And how good is that foundational team is again another key factor that is going to decide whether you succeed or fail. Yeah. And because any startup that's messed up at its foundation, there's no chance of it succeeding ever. So it's very important to choose your partners wisely. And wisely because you guys are going to work as a very tight unit team through multiple crises, right? A startup is never a flat line. You're jumping from one crisis to another. So unless you work very well together, have a very good understanding with each other, that team is not going to survive, right? So it's important to choose your partners wisely. And a good thumb rule again is it's not a bad idea to actually choose partners as partners, people who have worked with before. If you have a history of working together before, you probably have a good understanding of working with each other. And that's going to be, so you're most secure that when times get tough, and believe me, it gets tough on a daily basis, you guys will stay together, think together, and so on, right? Otherwise, if you take somebody you don't know very well, it's kind of a matter of chance. And that chance can decide whether you collapse or you actually stay afloat. Yeah? And your partners or co-founders should actually also, is another important, bring in complementary skills. So when you talk about startup, it's not just, even a tech startup, developing technology is only, I would say, 20-25% of the job, right? Packaging it, putting it out into the market, and unfortunately for us scientists, we realize that that is 75% of the job, right? So the arrogance that we have as techwala, the scientists, quickly gets diminished once you're in a startup environment, because ultimately until you actually can market your product, the best technology in the world is not worth it. Right? So of course there's the finance, because you're always worried about costing, money, and so on. So you need people with good business acumen, good finance acumen, and so on. So it's good to actually have a complementary team rather than everybody of the same shade or all tech wallahs in founding a startup, right? And of course, all of them must be equally passionate and committed, because without that, it's not going to work. The other thing is, since it's a very small number of people, maybe 3 or 4 or 2 or 3, who are in the startup, and in the beginning you're definitely not going to have money to hire too many people. Obviously you're playing multiple roles, right? The tech wala is also sometimes preparing a pitch document for investors or for customers. The finance wala is sometimes helping you hold the pipette or whatever, and so on. So multitasking, ability to multitask, and recognizing that you need to multitask. I think that's the critical thing. You know, getting out of your individual silos. I'm a scientist, but I still had to make a pitch to market the product or make chai for the team. All these, one thing that very quickly disappears in a startup environment is egos. Yeah? And that's the great thing about startups. Can I have the next slide, please? And of course, when you talk about founding partners, like I said, I mean, it should all be equally committed and passionate about the goal. Yeah? Because I think that's critical, since there are hardly a handful of people in the startup, including the founders or co-founders. Unless everybody is 100 or 10,000% committed to the goal, it's not going to work. Because you're working on the leanest, manpower that's possible, right? Rather than even have one person for one job, you actually have one person for more than one job. So unless everybody is committed, particularly when times are hard, have that commitment and faith, you're not going to survive, because one weak leg, one guy who or one person who's not so committed and slacks off will kill the whole company. So it's because resting on very delicate foundations in the first few years, right? And the other thing, of course, and particularly true in India, is can you be immune to all kinds of pressures, right? And you'll have different kinds of pressures. One is the conventional, why are you going for a startup? नौकरी क्यों नहीं कर लेते, सरकारी नौकरी क्यों नहीं कर लेते? That's one level of pressure. The other thing is, of course, everybody knows what you're doing, how to do your job better than you do. We've all gone through that at all levels, right? So do you have faith and conviction in your own ideas and beliefs so that you can withstand some of these? Of course, you need to listen to ideas, but you should have the ability to filter them, recognize what is useful, and throw out what is not. Because too many people are there to give you advice. And if you follow all of them, you're going in circles rather than in a straight line. So that kind of filtering ability is important. And by and large, bulk of society around are traditionalists. And in spite of the growth of startups, by and large, startups, particularly for you younger guys, instead of applying a sarkari job and so on, is still going against that traditional grain. So that also requires a little bit of a backbone and courage and conviction. So that is key. And even after starting up, there are too many people who will tell you, "Arey bhai, this is not good, that is not good, ye galat kar rahe ho." So you need to be able to filter all those and hold yourself up, because this is again not a trivial demand that is placed on you. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah. And the most important thing, so let's say you want to set up a startup, you've decided to go ahead, you even have an idea about what product you want to develop, you're convinced it is good, right? You're convinced it is 10 times better than anything else. And you have a good team. You have a friend who will put in the money, somebody else will bring in the marketing or business experience and so on. Yeah. But the next step actually that you should do is put down a good business plan, right? That is your immediate roadmap or your roadmap for the immediate future, right? Because you may have the brightest of ideas for the best of technology, but remember, the success of your startup is going to depend uh, the success of your startup is going to depend on how well you develop it, how well you put it out into the market, and how well the potential customers accept it, right? So these are all key criteria, and all of this, of course, each one takes time, takes money, and all of those, right? So which is why I'm getting a message. Is that for me or please? Okay, so so that is what you and your team must have it very clearly in your mind before you even found the startup, right? So the business plan, like I said, is a roadmap, and it's a framework within which you can plan your operations once you found your startup. And what are the key issues you need to sort out in your mind? So let's say, because you have a product or a product idea, having a product in the lab as opposed to making it ready for customers in the field, obviously, uh, that is a separate process which you need to do. Or if you only have an idea, you want to develop it, so you need to have an idea of how long will it take you to finish developing your product, right? Whether it is the final steps or completely. So you need to have timelines on that, right? You need to clearly understand who that product is intended for. You know, is it for the consumer? Is it for specific businesses? Say like if you're developing a diagnostic kit, is it for pathology labs, diagnostic labs and so on. So that's something you need to have very, very clearly in mind. And once you know who your target customer is, you also need to get an idea of how your product is differentiated from the product of your competitors in the market, right? And that is good to have that idea right in the start, because that allows you to do some refinements to amplify the differentiators with regards to your technology as opposed to what is already in the market, right? And of course, I mean, it not only sure what does it differentiate, you also will understand how to, ease of use. These are the other critical things. How would you convince customers to test your product at least? And of course, things like ease of use and so on, right? So just to give you a simple example, you can develop a diagnostic test, okay? So one of the areas I'll come to towards it, and we are developing some new um, artificial intelligence-based diagnostic platforms, right? So we give it to a pathology laboratory. But what we realize is to attract them, so basically it analyzes large data sets and gives a result, right? So what we have also done to make it easy for customers is we developed software packages where the customer has to do nothing. You just feed in the data, right? And automatically, it analyzes the data. It actually brings out the report in the format that the customer wants. So they just have two simple operational steps. So for instance, for ease of use, we developed software packages that link with our diagnostic platform, right? So that makes it, so the customer says, wow, I don't do anything. I can sit back, have my chai and just press a button here or there. So those kinds of things are actually very, very critical. Because remember, for a customer, is it cheap? Is it easy to use? Are the key considerations. He's not worried about how great your technology is. Well, that is important, but these are equally important. And that's another realization in these businesses, because that is as important as how good my technology is. Both are critical. So all of these you must have in mind, and what your timelines are, because remember, you're working on a shoestring budget, very little money. So you need to know this. It'll take me, say, 3 months or 4 months or 6 months to develop the product. I'll file my patents, and then I'll start looking at. So you need to have those timelines so you can even budget for them. So this part is going to cost me this much, this is going to cost me this much, and so on. Of course, like all good plans, nothing is going to go as you plan, which is okay, but this is your framework, and you understand what the broad timelines are, because nowhere else is it more true that time is actually money, and good time management is actually the difference between success and failure, right? Yeah, so that's very, very critical. So having all of this down on a piece of paper is very important and will help you, get your startup off more smoothly and hopefully towards the successful trajectory. Is that the next slide, please? Yeah. So these should all be clear, between you and your partners, and so writing an effective business plan. And if you need help on that, and of course, that business plan will then go hand in hand with a sense of what the costings will be, how much money will I require for each of those phases, so that okay, I have so much money now, but within 6 months I'll need so much more for, let's say, IP filing or the marketing and so on. So you have you know how the money that you have now, how much that is going to last you in this pipeline, this early stage pipeline. And you will also have a sense of when do you need to start looking for more money and so on. So all of this you get, under control before you start, and it allows you to plan, manage better, and also helps you recognize uh, the value of the timeline that you have set for yourself. So in terms of writing good business plan, there are many templates that are available online, and they give you tips on how to write the proposal, and they're pretty good because they highlight some of the important points that you need to consider, which you might not normally. So they're very good. They are useful, these templates, but remember again, never follow templates blindly because this is your company, your creation, your vision, and everything. So templates, they give you good pointers on the key points to consider, but how you frame it, etc., you can actually play with it and do it in ways that you think are more appropriate for the kind of company that you want to start. Can I have next slide, please? Yeah, so like this is again just repeating. So the key of a good startup, it should have potential for great scale right into its first design, right? Which basically means assuming that my product is a success, I should be able to produce it in larger quantities without, exponentially or even arithmetically scaling up the costs involved, right? And of course, it should be novel enough, so I create a brand for that, right? So, if it is much better, innovative, like the 10x factor, people start recognizing your product it gets branded among the customers, and that's key to establishing it within the market, right? And a good example of what is generally a poorly scalable business is, say, a restaurant, right? So roughly, let's say a restaurant can feed 100 people a day. So therefore, it makes X amount of profit per day. Now, if I want to scale up that restaurant, I have to build more restaurants in different parts of the city or country or whatever. But what will always happen is each new restaurant I make will still feed only 100 number of people a day. So whereas my investment will also multiply accordingly. So, so for every new restaurant, I have to invest exactly the same as I invested in my first one, ballpark. So that keeps multiplying arithmetically, and proportionately, the number of batches of 100 customers I figure also increases proportionately. So the investment, and revenue, that ratio doesn't dramatically change. That's one business model. The other, like I said, software product. You can just, you take an example like Facebook or Twitter. In principle, it just goes viral across the global community without any particular costs, right? I just put something up in the cloud and people all over the world can download it. And it cost me just a few thousand rupees to put something up in the cloud. So, so I can make million copies with barely any increase in investment. If it's like something like a software or the restaurant, it goes proportional. So these are the two extreme examples. But what is critical for a startup, because you don't have much money to invest. When you're entering the market, you don't have much money to scale up your product. So to make sure that you can scale it without any exponential increase in production cost, is the business model for startups, because that's something you're tied up with. So that is something even in your business plan you should have in mind, that if I'm developing a product, what will it cost me to make 1,000 or 10,000 or a million of those units of those products, and will that cost be okay? So can I have the next slide, please? Okay. So another important question, of course, is, like I said, making a good product is critical, but knowing how to put it into the market and get it accepted in the market is equally important, and sometimes maybe more important, because unless you can get your product in the market, the best technology in the world is useless, right? And you are fighting against fierce competition, right? And the competition today, in today's scenario, is not just from corporates, but also many other startups who may have a similar idea that you have, right? So you really, although you don't have a sales team, you don't have a marketing team, you will still need to keep punching above your weight because, you know, to establish your product. That is critical. And you need to do that with a minimal budget that you're struggling with, virtually no sales force. And like I said, the uniqueness, your strength at one level is the uniqueness of your product, right? Um, but that, you know, that is enough to allow it to establish in the market. But to get people to convince people to try your product, again, it doesn't matter if it's a healthcare product or a diagnostic or whatever it is, the pricing is critical. So because it is generally customers are using a particular product and now you're trying to convince them, try mine instead. And I can say it's the best technology in the world, but the customer says, I'm using this already, I'm comfortable. So how do you get the customer out of their comfort zone? And that is where pricing comes in. Pricing, ease of use, those do come in. So if the price is low, the customer says, okay, let me try it. And if he or she likes it, then of course they stick to it, right? So you need low pricing to introduce it to the market. And then you need high quality innovation to make sure it establishes in the market. You can convince a customer to try a product once if the price is cheap enough. But then what defines whether the customer sticks to your product or not is the quality of your product. Your room for failure is virtually non-existent when it comes to startups, right? And that depends on how good, how unique, and how novel your product is. And if that customer likes it, he or she will tell others, and that's how your market starts acquiring scale over a period of time. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah. And of course, and this is one of the biggest challenges, and it's something we also face a lot of, is the best way to market the product that you have. And again, just to reiterate the same point, is you're a new startup, your visibility is low, okay? Nobody knows who you are. Your marketing budget is also very, very trivial. So nobody knows you. So even if you go and tell somebody I have the best product in the world, new technology, innovative technology, um, what credibility that you have that they will trust you, right? So that is the initial entry challenge that all startups face. And this is actually not an easy job, and this requires a lot of thought. And somehow you need to figure out targeted marketing strategy. And that's why you need a very good marketing expert as part of your team, right? And that person will have to have a very clear perspective on how to position your product in the market, how to project the beneficial features, and get at least some people to take a risk and try it, right? So that, and of course, and if they like it, then okay, you're slowly entering to the market. So a very strong marketing strategy and sales pitch is very, very critical. So very early on, you should bring in, maybe even as a partner, somebody with really, really good marketing skills. Of course, today there are other options, but it still needs a very good strategy. I mean, you have options like digital marketing and so on, influencer marketing, but they're all getting saturated, right? Yeah. Can I have the next slide, please? And of course, your focus should always be to start in your immediate neighborhood, depending on your product, right? If it's a product aimed at customers, then you want to start in your gully, your mohalla, whatever, in your local area. Get it established. So find that niche where you can first focus, get it accepted there, and once it is accepted, then you can think of scaling across, right? If it's a product, let's say for diagnostic labs or whatever type of product, if it's for other businesses, focus on one business to get it accepted, right? And once it's established there, it's used, then you can actually start looking at other businesses where you can introduce your product. It's always important that you start small. because for two reasons. One is your strength in marketing is very low, and these are people you can immediately reach. And frankly, if you get some initial group of customers who take your product, like your product, then it becomes easier to scale. It goes by word of mouth, and you also have examples of adoption of your technology, which you can pitch to others and so on, right? So this is again very critical, and again a very strong marketing plan is required here. So that is identify what your niche market is in advance, and this will help you better align your product. And this is critical because remember, let's say even if you take India, it's culturally diverse, right? So if I know I'm pitching to a particular segment of the customer, you can understand their mindsets and maybe tailor your product to better adapt to them, right? This is less relevant for technology given product, but other types of product, it becomes critical, right? But nonetheless, knowing your customer, who you're going to first focus on, your niche market in advance, is critical and will help you, develop and market entry strategy that is going to be very, very critical. Yeah? And, okay. So can I have the next slide, please? Yeah. So like I said, it's the new startups, tough life, tough challenges. It's hard and very unpredictable, right? Um, and startups necessarily are very high risk proposition in terms of your future, and also in terms of the people who invest money in you and so on. Yeah. So any chance of success requires three core elements. Without that, you don't even want to really get into it. Obviously, you need to have confidence in yourself, right? There will be daily failures in every day, but are they? So it depends on your perspective. And are they disasters or just simply hiccups, right? So do you have the confidence to face every problem as a hiccup and not as an end of the world disaster? Yeah? And like I said, a very good strategy, understanding your product, understanding the timelines for developing the product, understanding the market, and having a very good plan for how you're going to enter the market and so on, right? And obviously, just having a great plan is not good enough. You should execute it very, very efficiently. So these are the key core elements which are absolutely indispensable for any startup company. Can I have the next slide, please? All right. And of course, while you're doing all this, so let's say the first window of a startup is from foundation of the startup to the stage where the product, you're now ready to bring your product into the marketplace, right? So you need the money to take it up to there, right? You need money for product development, building a market pitch, building a sales pitch, whatever, all of those, right? You need money to hire the people, the staff that you want working on it, and so on. So do you have a secure fund flow to take you up to that point? And at that point, you will need also more money to actually put it out into the market, because there will be costs related to that, whether it is pitching, having a sales team, marketing, digital marketing, whatever you choose, depending on the nature of your product. And of course, you also have costs for office lab scale rentals, and which could be incubators have made this cost much cheaper now. So that's a great development that we have. But you also need salaries for the core personnel, which is people working on the technology, people working on the business development side, whatever cost it takes to develop your products, and utilities, right? This is in startups is the time you start worrying about things like electricity costs, air conditioning costs. You don't worry about it when you're in universities or research institutions, but here you do, right? Marketing, pre-marketing costs, and any other expenses. So it's critical again to make sure you have funds to cover this period, because suddenly in the middle you don't want to run out of money, and things are going well, but you have no way to take them forward, right? And again, all of this is largely angel investor in stage. You need either friendly people, families who are investing, or of course a partner who has willing to invest and so on. Because it's too early to go for professional investors like venture capitalists or other such agencies. They will largely, particularly in India, unfortunately, that's one of the challenges of startups in India, unlike say in the West, where there people, a lot of venture capitalists are people who develop technologies and sold their companies. So they understand tech development companies, the risks, and they're willing to risk it if an idea excites them. Unfortunately, India, that stage hasn't come, and we'll come to that in a little while. So they'll only come in when they're sure, अच्छा ठीक है, product बन गया, market में जाएगा, so then they'll probably come in at that stage. You know? And to give you some of the major investment firms, you know, the venture capital investment firms in India are still investing in things like Flipkarts and Amazons and hospitals and so on. You don't see much of these guys getting into innovative startup. Okay, we'll come to that distinction. Can I have the next slide? And yes, let's say, you know, the challenge is that you founded your company, making sure that your funds, your cash flow is in good shape. And this is the problem, because no matter how well you plan, no plan works out, you know, as you actually intended to, because there are so many uncertain things which you haven't thought about, which is fine. I mean, you know, that plan was a framework, like I said. It's not, so so you need somebody who always thinks about making sure there's money, how to get money if I need it, you know, and so on. Let's say part of it, you get a great new idea that you will add value to your product, but you need some extra funds for it. So all those kinds of things. So you need to keep thinking about that all the time. How do I keep my cash flow in? Because at that stage, you're not earning, you're only spending, right? And available funds are low. And like I said, despite your best planning, expenses will go out of control, right? There are times when you say, oh, I have okay for 3 months, and suddenly at the end of 1 month, you say, oh God, I didn't think of this and now I'm in trouble, right? So another good thing you need is a good person you need is a good financial consultant. And fortunately, you don't have to hire such people. They are available. I mean, they are people who consult for startups, and for a normal, reasonable fee, they will, you know, keep track of your expenses and, you know, keep you ahead in terms of your fund situations and so on. And clearly, the money you started out when you founded the company, you will suddenly realize is not taking you as far as you'd hope. So looking into constantly how to generate extra cash is key, and you need somebody who's very, very good at that. Yeah. And of course, your fund requirement will keep increasing as you cross different milestones in your company. And again, you need somebody who has track of that and can find ways of getting those funds as you move along in your growth trajectory. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay. And this is the serious problem I just referred to earlier. And in India, the investment climate among for tech startups is not very is very weak. You know, because I told you to establish and monopolize your brand in the market, you need a 10x product, and that's a global rule. Unfortunately, in India, that is slightly different, because 10x product, you know, you're more likely to get investment with a 2x, 3x product. I'll tell you why. Because, like I said, venture capitalists in India are not okay. So first thing we know is a startup is a risky proposition, and the guy who will invest in a startup who loves your idea, right? Um, and then wants to make money of that, but willing to take the risk. So he has to have a passion for tech, passion for ideas, right? And excitement with ideas. He has to. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm saying he, but he or she has to share the excitement that you have for your idea. I think that is very, very critical. And in countries, particularly in the West, you will find that, because, like I said, many venture capitalists have actually set up tech businesses themselves. And then let's say somebody had developed a new drug in a startup, sold that company, made a few million or $1 billion, and now wants to invest in new company. So this is a person who understands science, understands technology, understands the excitement of developing technology, and willing to take a risk on it. In India, unfortunately, such people don't exist. Maybe a few exceptions here and there, but largely don't exist. They're pure business fellas. So they will understand if I say I have a better model, my startup is going to deliver things, and I have a better model than Flipkart, they will look at you because they know, they understand how Flipkart or whether it's Swiggy or whatever works. And now they have a way of evaluating is your approach better than theirs? And if they are convinced, they'll say, okay, I'll give you some money, right? On the other hand, when they say I have an innovative tech, they don't understand how it's going to work in the market. They have zero experience with tech by and large, right? Okay. And convincing them, they don't know what to compare it with, right? Let's say I have a new diagnosis for cancer, which is 100 times better than anything. So they don't understand how it enters the market, how it will compare, what do they compare with. So there's no history that they can compare with. And in India, that's not a mature enough market area. Tech is not yet a mature enough market area for them to start risking it and so on. Right? And unfortunately, the climate being what it is in India today is generally venture capitalists abroad are hesitant to invest in India. Right? So, for instance, if you talk about healthcare, you will get venture capitalists who will invest in software that will aggregate patients, link you up, give you appointments to doctors, and so on. Right? But if I say I have a new test for a healthcare, new thing, they don't know what to do with it. That's really one of the problems. Right? So if it's slightly better and where the investor can actually measure how much better and evaluate if it is better, it works. But that's not the secret to a long-term company. You should still insist on a 10x. That ultimately, because I may have a model that is maybe more efficient than Flipkart, but that's for today. Tomorrow Flipkart will come and they have more money than you do, and they can fix whatever glitches and become now 2 or 3 times better than yours, right? So that's a losing proposition over the long term, right? So a good startup must be much better, technological innovation and so on. It should be pushing a 10x product, and you will struggle getting some good investors for that, but it's worth it in the long term. Because the moment you establish yourself, investors will come, right? What it simply means is it will take a little longer to get the investment. So if I develop a 10x product, and now there are some customers using it, now you go to an investor and say, look, I have a 10 customers. You give me money, I can make it 1,000 or customers. At that stage, you will get. But earlier than that, it's a little difficult to get convinced. By and large, of course, there are exceptions, but by and large. Yeah? So how do you address this problem? Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, no, the next slide, please. Yeah. So how do you address the problem? Of course, there are no simple answers, and you will have to look far and wide for investors. But really, it's a good thing. One good approach is to connect with potential investors early on, not for investment, but just to familiarize them with what you're doing, and so that they can keep updated on kind of progress you're making. And at some point, they actually might say, look, this looks good, this looks interesting, and you guys are doing a good job. And they could invest at earlier stage than they normally would, right? And when you talk to investors, it's always, remember, they're here to make money, not admire your technology. So you always need to pitch the strength of your technology, but also equally important is pitching the commercial potential of the product. So you say technology is good, sum it up in a couple of sentences. Don't bore them with the details of the technology. So but the market potential, value to customer, and so on. Because remember, when you're pitching to investors, after the first 3 or 5 slides, they start losing interest. So everything you say, it's called the elevator pitch, is the first interest. That is between an elevator ride from the first to third of the floor. You should be able to communicate your idea and get the investor interested enough to follow up more detailed discussion with you. So that's critical, and a lot of it is addressing the business potential of your product, which is what the investor is really looking into. Next slide, please. And if you have a good investor, you're really lucky. Because once an investor invests in a company, they're banking on the future, right? So they'll not just look on whether your product is better than your competition today, but how long can this, uh, sustain? And that's where your 10x now becomes crucial, because if it's 10x better than everything else, with a strong IP around it, you're more sustainable over the long term, right? You know, because in the startup world, remember, it's not your company value is not what is valued today, but the amount of money it can make in the future. So even companies like Twitter may be in millions of dollars loss, but their value is in billions of dollars. And that's one of the conundrums of startups. You may be making a loss, but you may be one of the most valuable companies in the world because the projections are always into the future. Yeah? So sustainability of your product is going to be critical for good investors to come in. And that again brings you back to the 10x valuation of product. Next slide, please. Okay, so hiring the right team is critical. You need really good people. Unfortunately, you're not able to pay them the salary they deserve. If they're really good, they will want good salary. You don't have the money to pay them. So how do and they don't want to take a risk, right? Because startup, who knows whether it will survive or not, and so I'm risking my future. So how do you resolve this is a problem, and it's not an easy solution, right? And the other thing is the kind of people you need. They need to be outstanding at what they do, but they should also have the capacity to multitask. Because somebody you hire as a scientist in your team should also be able to make an excellent presentation to an investor or work with your marketing guy on designing the pitch and so on. So everybody is multitasking. And the kind of people must complement each other and importantly work well together. So this is more critical. Yeah? In an larger industry, academic, other, दो लोग झगड़ा करते हैं, doesn't matter. I mean, life moves on. But in a startup, if two people fight, you're in deep trouble. You can't happen. Egos, there is no place for egos in a startup, right? Because that will destroy the company. Even two people fighting is enough because you hardly have 5 or 6 people in your company, right? So can I have the next slide? And with that team, you need to build a work culture that is committed to the company. And important in a startup, there is no hierarchy. There is no boss, there is no nobody, right? Because we are all people with shared responsibility. I have my job to do, you have your job to do. And particularly in Indian setting, that's an important lesson to learn, right? And it's also a wonderful lesson to learn, right? Yeah. And one good way, if you can get this, it's fantastic because have a good mentor, who and particularly somebody who's very sharp at business, who has some experience in business development, and if he or she has experience with startup, all the better, because somebody like that can help you avoid many pitfalls. Um, especially if you come from an academic or a scientific environment, you can get excited by different ideas and let me try this, let me try that. It's a bad business strategy for a startup because you want to keep it focused. First, get this out before you try something. So, and also the financial. So, having a mentor who's very business sharp and has experience in business development, I think is very critical. And if such a person you can bring in right from the beginning, it will save you many headaches and heartaches as you try to build your company. Can I have the next one? And learning how to manage time, because you're going to have multiple responsibilities as co-founder of startup. Because remember, you are the tech head, you are also the admin person, you're making chai for everybody, you're strategizing for the future. So you're doing multiple things, and it might be easy to get bogged down with it. And more importantly, you need to have a clear how much time you spend on each of these, right? Because if I spend too much time on developing strategy, my product development activity may be compromised because I'm playing a role in both. So on time management and making sure that everything is well oiled is very critical, right? Because each of these responsibilities are vital. You can't give up on any of those. You're one of 3 or 4 people in the company, so you can't give up on any responsibility. But manage your time so that you can focus on each of them to the extent that you need to. And very often a good strategy is you can actually plan your day or week ahead, and so that you make sure you don't drop the ball, because that's very easy to do. You suddenly realize I spent so much in looking at my my marketing or recruitment strategy that I forgot to focus on developing my product. So those things can't happen, right? Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah. So fundamental, I mean, the key foundation for the success of the company is, a quality product. And remember, I mean, ideally a 10x level quality product and quality marketing. And both of those cannot go on unless you have a sustained cash flow that supports them, right? Yeah, and all of making sure all of these are in sync requires a very strong and astute business planning. And again, this is where a mentor can be very helpful, right? So the startup must have good business perspective and make sure that these three things are taken care of adequately. Right? Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah. And of course, I mean, this is something I just run through. I've said most of it. As a startup, you want revenues as quickly as possible because you're struggling to survive until that happens, and you're facing a very competitive environment. So because of this, apart from an innovative product, you also can use an innovative marketing plan in which highlights why your product is unique, why it is critical, and how it will help the customer. What it's traditionally called pain points. How will it address the pain points of the customer? And and to achieve that, you need to keep one step ahead in terms of anticipating problems. Make sure you're focused on your goals. And in terms of market, you focus, like I said, first on a niche market and make sure you're established there. Because once you do that, you're in a position to scale. And importantly, you're also in a position to attract venture capital. It could be a Series A funding or whatever. Right? And of course, when you talk about marketing, there are electronic platforms for marketing, digital or Facebook or whatever. But depending on the nature of your product, um, you can see which ones you can exploit. But all of them, marketing is a very crowded environment now. And I'm sure all of you know, every time you see an ad when you're online or on your mobile, the first thing you just flick it in irritation without looking at it, right? So how do you cross that barrier and make sure that other person actually spends at least a few seconds looking at what your ad says and so on. So those are different level challenges. Yeah. So can I go to the next level slide, please? Yeah, so for a successful startup, boldness in vision and approach, very critical. Very good planning with care and foresight, very critical. And again, here, having a good mentor early on can help you in this. And recognizing it. That's another thing, particularly for people from, let's say, like us, coming from a science background, where we think technology is the all end of a product. But recognizing that sales is as important and sometimes even more important than the product itself in the context of the survival and growth of your startup company. So that's an important recognition we must have. Yeah? So the next slide. So basically, if you know all of this, I'm sure the question is, should you still become? Can I have next slide, please? Should you still become a startup entrepreneur? Because it could be the best thing you do. And because why is it the best thing you can do? It is challenging. It will, I know it is exciting. It is invigorating. Your adrenaline is always flowing. Uh, you're always on your toes. You can't rest for a minute because every minute costs uh, cost the future of your company. And of course, it teaches you many dimensions of business and life, right? And business is a lot about people interaction, handling different aspects of it, and in its own ways, it can be exciting. And importantly, you're in charge of your own destiny, right? Whether it is failure or success, you're the one responsible. Not a boss, not the politics in your workplace, and so on is entirely up to you. So you're not serving any boss, and it's up to you to create the kind of work environment and culture. So it can be informal, it can be fun. There are companies which have, if you look at Google, it's probably one of the most fun places to work at in the world. They have pods where you can go to sleep, you can play computer games, and so on. Yeah. So in many ways, it can be the most satisfying thing you do. But on the flip side, it also can be the worst thing you can do, right? I mean, it's tremendous responsibility on your shoulder because the moment you found it, moment you've hired a few people and just you're not responsible for yourself anymore, but all the staff who have had faith in you, who have joined you, you have to make sure that they get their salary, they have a future, right? Constantly you're making decisions. You can make some as many as 20, 30 decisions a day. All of them are important. So that pressure is always there. And obviously, all of us doubt ourselves most of the time, right? I mean, you doubt your product, is it really good enough? Am I good enough? Can I do this job? And so on. Yeah? That doubt is always there. And remember, every time a crisis comes, which is quite often, that doubt keeps amplifying itself inside you. Cash flow worries. Can I pay my guys next month? Month after that? How long can I pay their salary? And that's not an easy stress to bear all the time, right? And of course, criticism. Every expert who comes by or everybody who comes by knows exactly why you're going wrong or what you're doing wrong. So can I ignore that and stick to my goal, or and so on. And obviously, the end of it, why am I dealing with all this stress? Let me take a regular job, and at least it gives me a peaceful life. So these are the best thing you can do, or the worst thing you can do. You need to choose, and that choice depends on your personality. You like challenges, you like excitement. I mean, you like to keep testing yourself. Nothing like a startup. You don't like stress and the various things that come with it, then perhaps startup is not for you. So I think if I want to start out, do I have the temperament for it? Is the first thing. Can I have next slide, please? And if you choose to build a startup, of course, a startup survival depends on making money. Yeah, but your end goal cannot just be about making money because you're never going to make lots of that. Unless you're really, really lucky, you may make good if to start up, right? But there's also the adventure, where you're testing yourself, the challenges that you're facing, and the excitement of those. Those should be very important reasons for going for a startup. Also, the excitement that allows you to be completely free and creative in a variety of dimensions. Creative in terms of technology, creative in terms of how you handle your people, how you handle your finances, how you pitch your products. So it's a huge panorama that you're exposed to, and no other job gives you that kind of panorama, right? And one thing I can tell you for sure, it's a living enterprise because a startup every day is different in the sense, um, every bad day tells, every good day tells. It's something that it's a living, breathing enterprise, and you can sense it on a daily basis. A bad day, an experiment failed. Say, oh God, my startup, my product is now moved back. So it affects your startup and so on. And of course, you create your own world with a fun work culture because very often startups have creative or can have creative work culture, and you're not bounded by babus and bureaucrats. So that could be. But again, if these are all, of course, the exciting features that potentially of a startup. But really, your driving motto always is what unique company am I building that nobody else is building, right? What is I want to create a unique world for myself. What is that? And that should be really the driving force for a startup. Yeah. Can I just go? So that's bottom line. Can I just couple of minutes? I'll just explain about a few of the things that we do. Can I have the next slide, please? So that's really all I could think of in terms of talking about startups. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, so I thought just a couple of slides to tell you a little bit about what we do. So this is the company we founded about 2 years ago, Predomics Technologies. And our broad focus in generating tech for healthcare. And particularly we have a technology platform that we're developing, which we want to implement. And broadly, that platform is integrating artificial intelligence with big data and biology to develop the new technology. So that's broadly our area. And that's the niche we are creating for ourselves. We're bringing in artificial intelligence in innovative ways to understand and into big data biology for health tech. Yeah. So in that sense, currently we're working on 3 broad platforms. Can I have the next slide? So one of our early products, and this is what I mean by how you adapt to finance. So when we started the company, obviously we had very, very little money. And as you know, in biological sciences, healthcare, you can't do anything without equipment. Right? And that time we had nothing but a little room. So me and my team, so I bring in the biology expertise, and I have my partner brings in the AI expertise. So what we did is went through extensive healthcare literature and designed and developed an app, a healthcare app. It's called Health Optum. It's currently available both on the App Store and Google Play. And what it basically does is integrates personal, profile information. We have developed AI algorithms that analyze them, and these AI algorithms are based on clinical research from around the world for the last 20 odd years, and actually identifies potential 5-year risk for a whole range of diseases, identifies stress levels, identifies behavioral factors that link to cancer and so on. And then based on that, what we do is then it also recommends, it also functions as a personal coach. That again is a plan based on AI. It tells you based on your profile, what it also analyzes your lifestyle, because one of the big things for the chronic diseases today, which are now the major problem, is heart disease, diabetes, and so on. That's what our app focuses on, is lifestyle. And lifestyle means, because today our lifestyle is not in synchrony with our biological clock, right? Our biological clock has been programmed over the last several 100,000 years to work in according to a particular schedule, dawn dusk schedule, right? And that's how when I say biology, all the biochemical machinery is programmed to work in that way. But our lifestyle today actually is not in sync with that. And that is one of the core reasons why we are so much more susceptible to diseases like diabetes, heart disease, cancers, kidney diseases, fatty liver, and so on. So we actually, it recommends lifestyle realignment programs and so on. So that's the first thing we bought up, because that didn't take equipment. That just took a little bit of brains, little bit of jugaad, and we could bring that out. And it's currently available on App Store and Google Play. We have reinvented it, and it just brought out a new version a couple of weeks back. So that's one product. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, the next one, and this is one of our main areas, is focusing on early stage cancer detection. Because the problem in cancer is, in most cases, you don't detect it early, the early stage 1 cancer, let's say, and only detect it later. And that's the problem, because if you detect in stage 1, you can save lives. Almost 80-90% in most cancers, people can be saved. But if you miss that stage, prognosis is extremely poor. So we have developed this new platform which integrates mass spectrometry, where we look at metabolome profiles. We do metabolomics and integrate that with artificial intelligence. We develop machine learning algorithms that analyze. So what we do is take a sample of blood from an individual. We analyze the complete metabolome profile. It's called untargeted metabolomics. So profile of metabolites in the blood, serum actually. It's about 30 to 40,000 metabolites we scan. And then we have machine learning algorithms that extract patterns from that and identify whether that individual has a disease or not. So currently we have a single platform that can simultaneously diagnose early stages of breast cancer, the women specific cancers, breast cancer, ovarian, uterine, and cervical, the single round blood, and we get about 98-99% accuracy. So it is certainly, we believe, a 10x product. We are now doing some field trials and see how it can go before bringing it into the market or partner. Last slide, please. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, the other thing, of course, is we bring in, like I said, artificial intelligence into drug target discovery and drug development. So we have a two-stage platform. So if you have high throughput biological data, let's say gene expression profiles and so on, we have an AI, artificial intelligence driven platform, which the total platform we are calling Druid, which can actually identify candidate proteins that can serve as drug targets. That's the first step. The second step, second part of the platform is, if we have a drug target, we again have an AI-based platform that does de novo drug design, right? So it actually looks at the coordinates of the binding site on the protein and starts designing molecules randomly that can fit into it, right? So we don't need to have any a priori information and so on, just taking the coordinates. We have to train the algorithm to actually design, and we set the threshold of the binding affinity we want and so on. And we have supporting algorithms that screen for properties of the molecules that the drugs that you design, or the candidate drugs you design, must meet criteria for good bioavailability, toxicity, and other properties like solubility and so on. So we have then the molecule that it designed, it can design over a couple of days about 10,000 plus molecules for a particular target. And now that we put into a separate AI pipeline that actually filters out those molecules which are likely lead drugs. That is, they fit criteria for drug likeness and low toxicity, oral bioavailability, and so on. And that we generated. That's a third pipeline. So that's broadly what we do. Can I have the next slide? And yeah, can I have the next slide, please? So that's what it is. And then this is just to say thank you. But just want to make an important point what I said. If you notice now, there are three companies that I put below. One is Predomics, which is good. Now there's another company which is now a sister company called Health Optim. And the third is we have set up a US company. And simply this is because keeping a marketing strategy, because the marketing for healthcare apps will have to be different from cancer diagnostics, will be different from drug discovery. So these are now split up, and these are same people, same faces. It's just that this allows different marketing strategies for each of the product lines that we have. So that's just one example of how we adapt to the needs of what you're doing. So basically, I'm done with this, and I hope it was useful. Thanks to everyone for the patience to listen, and thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Subbarao, for delivering the expert lecture. And we were enlightened to know starting from the very nitty-gritties of making a startup company. Those are like from having a innovative or unique idea, from writing an effective business plan, understanding the market, managing startup fund and managing finance, and like ultimately to hiring proper employees and managing time, most importantly. Now the floor is open for question and answer. I have two questions from the students. Dr. Subbarao, please remember our students are mostly BSc and MSc students.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So the first question is there any network insurance model available for startup?
Net worth insurance model.
Yes, network insurance model.
Network or net worth?
Network, like internet network, like that.
Okay, so I'm not sure. What is the network insurance model? I didn't understand what an insurance.
No, net worth hoga. It should be net worth.
No. I mean, no. There is, because you actually don't have a net worth in the early stages, right? But sometimes investors like to. So if somebody is investing in a company, they would like to get the key personnel insured, right? Because if something happens, somebody has put money into your company, and they have faith in, let's say, one or two people who will make the product and drive it. So they insure them because in case something happens to them, so at least they can recover the money. Those kinds of there, but I'm not aware of any other insurance model. It might be there, but I don't know.
Okay. The next question is how to attract an investor?
So I think you need, like I said, maybe in 3 to 5 slides. The first step is what is classically known as the elevator pitch, right? So like I said, if you manage to catch an investor in an elevator, of course, is the lift, is the American thing. So in a lift, if you can catch the investor, can you make a quick pitch to him or her in that time that you're going from one floor to another to actually interest the investor? So what it basically means is, can you summarize a very brief pitch which highlights what is unique about your product and why it is, and what is market potential? Without any details, maybe in just 2 or 3 slides, you need to do that. So that's the first pitch the investor will look at, because nobody has time to look at your proposal in the first step. So the 3 to 5 slides If you can make that well, a unique product, why it is so important and what is market potential. Then if the investor is interested, he or she will come back to you and discuss in more detail. So that first pitch is very, very important. And there again, there are templates available, but I think, good, if you can get a good mentor, somebody to, to evaluate what you're pitching is very critical. Because remember, if I'm a tech person, my focus will be on what is unique about my technology. My investor, the potential investor wants to know what is possibly unique of technology, but only in the context of how much business will improve. That's the investor's perspective. So you have to keep that in mind. So yeah, that short pitch can highlight both very well. That is the first step.
Okay, sir. Thank you for answering our questions. Now I invite our Dean, School of Engineering, Dr. Amish Vyas, for concluding remarks. Dr. Vyas, please.
Yeah, I would like to thank Dr. K.V. Subbarao for a very inspirational and very motivational speech. He cleared all the doubts regarding the startup right from the scratch ground level to the how to manage finance and everything. And yes, I would like to thank Guj Coast also because it's a very right topic, opportunities in chemistry and biological sciences or indigenization or in India. And this is the first one where he himself is an example for starting startup in the area of biological sciences using the AI application in biological sciences. So that's a very good, fantastic work. I must congratulate Dr. Subbarao for that. And yes, as he said very rightly, I would like to add that we have to be innovative in developing product for successful startup because startup failures are due to misconception and confusion between startup and new establishment. There is a very thin line, but we need to understand that. So as a startup person, we have to be competitive, we have to be risk taker, and funding, as he said, it is not an issue because so many government schemes are there. Just to start with the startup, initial level funding is available for any good innovative startup. Uh, Commitment to develop the startup and to convert it into good business, that is the key to success, because without commitment you can't do and be a good strategic planner. What he said very rightly, sir has addressed fundamental questions which are generally kind of FAQs, for starting any new startup or for the innovator. At the same time, 10x vertical advancement, that is the key to success, and it is a very good concept. I liked it, that horizontal as well as vertical both are needed, but the major problem is people are not aware about the IPR, the strength of IPR. So if you have a balance between cost and product quality for better market, if you have awareness regarding IPR, you can be a good startup. You can go with the good startup. And yes, it is a first impression, product reputation, you can't take chance. So it is very much needed. And partners must be supplement to each other in terms of the various skill. So have a good product, have a good partner, have a good skill, have a good strategy. If you understand the problem with the present product, try to correct it as per the customer requirement. Use digital and social media for effective marketing, desired survey, create trust in your product, highlight the USP of your product very strongly, understand the market of your product, and then initially, as sir rightly said, go for the focused market rather than the global market. Once you establish your focus market, mouth publicity will be there. Definitely, you will get the global market. So, yes, to summarize the core elements, what sir has said: confidence, good strategy, efficient execution, and in addition to that, product quality, market quality, and creativity in every action. These are very much essential. So, what we need to do: come out of the conventional mindset, think like an owner after getting investor, not like an employee. Choice is yours. So thank you very much, sir. You have done a fantastic job, and it was very motivational and very enlightening speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Dr. Subbarao,
Yes.
time I've heard you this type of first time from you this type of lecture. It's very well defined and each point is well covered,
Thank you. Thank you.
starting to end. Fantastic job.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It would have taken a lot of your time for the preparation.
No, not at all. Anyway, your daily experience, so it doesn't take time. You're living this.
You are experiencing daily. That's a nicely said it.
Yeah.
It was, thank you. And whenever you happen to come to this side,
I will. Yes.
because you have to go by Ahmedabad only.
Yes. I'll let you know. I'd love to stop by. Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
But once the COVID issue is done, then.
Then I know there is a, Mr. Sukhdev is always worried. Kya karna, kaise karna.
No, I know. Yeah.
See, we talk quite often. She only talks. That's Sukhdev.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
It's
for,
been a pleasure.
Dr. Bharati, anything you have to say?
Mute.
You
Ma'am, you are
are
muted.
muted, Dr. Bharati. You are muted, so we cannot hear you.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Nice, sir. It was really very inspiring and motivating. And the main thing is that he took time for us
No.
to deliver this lecture. That is more important. And I quite in detail. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Anything else? Palomi?
Yes, sir. Just few more minutes. Thank you, Amit sir, for your remarks and for briefing down Dr. Subbarao's entire talk so nicely. Thank you, Yadav sir. Thank you, Bharti ma'am. Now I invite my colleague, Dr. Hiral Trivedi, for vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you given by Dr. Amish Vyas itself.
Good afternoon, all.
Chalo.
Sir, it is customary to wind up with a vote of thanks. So let Dr. Hiral do your duty.
Unmute, we are.
Unmute.
Ma'am, she is unmuted only, sir. Hiral to unmuted ही है.
But we are not able to hear. And there sometimes she's becoming Nidhi Gaur, sometimes becoming Hiral Trivedi. Now Palomi, okay.
Sorry for the inconvenience. Good afternoon all. I, Dr. Hiral Trivedi, on behalf of English University, want to thank Professor Subbarao for giving this wonderful webinar and enriching us with his knowledge. I want to thank Dr. J.S. Yadav sir, our Provost and Research Director, without whose support and guidance this webinar series would not have been possible. I want to thank Professor Bharti Dave, Dean of School of Sciences, for providing us constant direction for this webinar series. I want to thank Professor Amish Vyas, Dean of School of Engineering, for constant support and guidance. I want to thank Mr. Abhinand Pandya and Colonel Sharma sir for HR and technical support. I want to thank Mr. Anuj and technical team of Indrashil University for advertising and setting up the webinar successfully. We express our deep gratitude to Gujkost for funding and financial support. Finally, I want to thank panelists, faculties of School of Sciences and School of Engineering, staff of Indrashil University, IU students, and all the attendees for giving valuable time and support. Thank you so much, everyone. With this, I want to end the webinar and thank you again to Professor Subbarao for giving his precious time to us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you all. And it's
Thank you,
been a
sir.
real pleasure.
Bye-bye,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.